listening to the Real Estate Financial Coach podcast, financial planning topics for real estate investors.
Hi, I'm Dave Rowan, and this is the Real Estate Financial Coach podcast. I'm here with my good friend, Denise Mennella. Denise, how are you today?
I am great. Greetings from lovely Tybee Island.
It looks lovely there, that's for sure. Nicer than here in Pennsylvania.
Exactly why we moved here, Dave. Exactly why we moved here.
Yeah, so let me do your intro. So this is wonderful. Denise was one of the first 50 employees in Bloomberg's data division. She worked there for 13 years until leaving to raise her children. Along the way, she was a small business owner. She ran an IT department and now is focused on short-term rental real estate. So awesome background. How did you get your start in real estate?
So this goes way back. It's a funny story. My mother is a retired realtor, and at one point, both my parents were licensed real estate appraisers. And back in the 80s, not to date myself too much, they decided that the best way to pay for college would be to flip houses. And I'm sure everybody realizes that was before flipping was a thing, but they would go get these houses because she was a realtor, either through word of mouth, or there was one lovely one that we got at a sheriff's sale, and they would buy these homes and fix them up. She was a partner with her broker at the time. They would fix them up and sell them and split the profits. So my parents, being parents of that age, decided that if they were going to pay for our college, that my sister and I should experience what it feels like to do the flipping. However, the flipping wasn't the fun part that everybody sees on HGTV. Our favorite job was ripping the carpets out of the house that we got at the sheriff's sale that we fondly named the Cat Pee House. So at that point, I was certain I was never going to go into real estate again. We had to know how to answer the phone politely. That was when you had one phone line, so you weren't allowed on the phone a lot because in case my mom had a real estate call. And I was never doing real estate again, which now I know that when you say you're never doing something, you are really destined
There you go.
to do it. Long rolls HGTV and Martha Stewart and all this decorating, which I was really into. And fast forward to when my husband and I were first married and I was pregnant with my daughter. And we stayed in a little tiny beach house that was on top of a little garage in our favorite Jersey Shore town, Seattle City. And it was for sale for $110,000, which is insane. And we were like, we should really buy this. We would love to flip. But my father actually talked us out of it and said, oh, you don't want to flip and you'll never be able to put a house on this property. It'll always just be a garage. And, and I was pregnant and you don't want to be down here every weekend taking care of this house. So we passed on it. Of course, now there's like a duplex or a quad on it right now. That's
who knows what that's worth, right?
Millions of dollars. Yeah. When it came time to have our exit plan for life in general, for the work life, we picked Tybee Island as our location and we got a vacation rental down here. And that's the start of our real estate empire. It might be the only part of our real estate empire, or it might be just the small part someday. But for right now, I'm the person that's one step ahead of the beginner, which is somebody who I always feel has a wealth of knowledge to give people who don't have any knowledge.
Yeah, wow. Okay, that's a great transition. And our, focus today is going to be short-term rentals. And I know it varies tremendously by market, but from your experience, what do you think people should look for in a property that they're considering as a short-term rental?
Okay, I would say not only does it vary by market, but it varies by people and also by their goals. Again, we were brand new at it and didn't do all of the things that if you follow all these people that are professionals and multimillionaires tell you to do. We were like, hey, we're coming out of the pandemic. Our kids have a couple more years in college and we want to move to Tybee Island. And how can we transition into Tybee? And my mother, being the realtor, said, you are living in a restored 1908 Georgian colonial, and you are not going to be able to have a large buyer pool when you sell your home because you are permanent residents in New Jersey. Somebody special has to know how to live in a home of that age. You have to love it. So don't you dare buy a house before you can afford to sell your other house. And so we did listen to her. Shockingly, I know.
Amazing.
I know she would faint if she heard me say that. But so we thought, how can we do this transition? And I said, why don't we try and buy a vacation rental down there? And we can go down. And then when we're ready, if we need to, we can actually live in it. Turns out that is not that did not happen. We did not have to live in our rental. The other thing that we were really looking for, in addition to the income and the opportunity to get our feet into this lovely community that we love so much, is that we vacation as a family. And by family, parents, sister, brother-in-law, nieces, favorite Aunt Tootie. So we call ourselves the herd because somebody gave us that name because we always do everything together. And I needed a place that fit the herd. Maybe a place that sleeps 10 to 14 people is not always going to be booked. But the other thing it serves as is our guest house, which is 8/10 of a mile away, which turns out is the perfect distance to have your family.
Mm. And I think you're highlighting a really key concept for financial advisors. That's our audience today, which is these decisions are not only just a math decision, but
Correct.
also a quality of life decision, right? And
Yes.
so you're talking about a lot of those aspects, whether it's location or other uses for the property.
Yeah, that's it. I definitely have dreams of doing other things. The thing I think that surprised my husband, Stephen, and I the most was how much our emotions play into it because he's also in financial technology, and we always prided ourselves on our professionalism and our ability to use data. We're data people. We're nerdy that way, but sometimes my heart is just, or his even, is screaming louder than our heads. It's like another person in the partnership. As we go along and talk, I'm sure we'll touch upon some things that we've been through in this last 2.5 years that have really hit us in the heart as almost more than the wallet. When you see it happening, whether it's on TV or you listen to somebody's podcast, they're always like, everything's wonderful. And oh, here, let me tell you this small funny story about a pipe that broke. But they're never telling you that you're like running your numbers all the time. And maybe people aren't because different people do it differently. But there's definitely a component to it where you get a little attached, especially with your first. When you're trying to come up with an exit plan, which is something we didn't do when we first bought it, but have had to do on the fly as situations started to change down here. We had to, for our own well-being, we had to know what we were going to do if this certain scenario happened or that certain scenario happened. It's really hard to give it up, even if you can get something better. It's really like, I refer to our vacation rental. It's called Nautical Watch. Every vacation rental down here has a name. I think she's a she. And I refer to her as her. So sometimes that really doesn't help me very much on the emotional side of things because
Right.
I literally call her like, she needs this and I like her for this and I think she would look good with this. And
You've dropped a boatload of breadcrumbs for me to pick up here in terms of next question. So
anything to make your job easier, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go get a cup of coffee. I'll be back in 15 minutes. You talked about things that you've encountered. And again, we're talking to financial advisors here. I think that there's two pieces there. One is if people are contemplating doing this as part of their real estate business, clients who are doing this as part of the real estate business, what should advisors be talking with them about what to expect that might not be readily apparent from going out there and looking at websites? And then also, what kind of landmines might be out there that the advisor can help them avoid?
Sure. The first thing would be your location. And so we knew of Tybee. I'll just use again, I'm not really, I'm not qualified as a financial advisor. So I'm just relaying my story. So I'll just use my story to explain. But we knew Tybee was a vacation destination. We have vacationed here in the past. We knew of other people that were vacationing here. So we're going to have a vacation rental. And when you first start looking for vacation rentals and you go on your real estate search engine of choice, say Zillow or Realtor.com, the realtors are always like, you'll make $85,000 a year and you're new, you're naive, you don't really know what you're looking at.
Sign me up. Sign me up.
Exactly. But
let's buy 2. Let's buy 5.
100%. Like, why isn't everybody doing this is your first thought. Like, how come this is such a great deal? And you don't hear people talking about it because most of the times of the people that I know that do it, they did it themselves and not with a group of people. Like, I've had you to bounce some things off of, but you're not really in the same space as I am, but you're really doing it on your own. And so you don't have the benefit of somebody else to be like, oh, when they say that, they mean this or what have you. So the one thing would be to really vet your location. In our situation, it didn't really matter what our location was because we had this other reason of doing it in order to relocate. Although we could have looked at other real estate opportunities in Savannah because we're 20 minutes outside of Savannah. That's where we go to get our haircut and buy our groceries sometimes and that stuff. But the other thing would be hindsight is a lovely thing. I would definitely check out the regulations of the community. I just did that.
And wait, so you used an acronym there. I just want to make sure
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. What was it?
STVR, short-term vacation rentals.
Very good. Okay.
Yes. So you want to check and see if they have any regulations. So before COVID, there weren't a lot of people on this island, and the people that were on it tended to be families that were here for generations. And once I would die and leave you a little beach cottage, and you would come down, like a lot of the people actually live in the Savannah area and just come for the weekend. And meantime, you would let your friends use it. During COVID, when everybody wanted to get away without going to a hotel and getting on an airplane, they had a boom here of people that wanted to come and stay. And they were printing money at that time. And if you recall, the interest rates during COVID were like incredibly low. So we bought at the end of that low interest rate period. We actually got both of our houses before the interest rates really went up. The rental and our parent home. Yes. Luckily we did that. But there was definitely, now we're post-pandemic and people can go to Europe and maybe they don't want to go to coastal Georgia and that kind of stuff. So we're feeling like some of the changes. So there was that. And then the other thing was, as the prices got cheap, people came in and started buying these little homes. And people that had these homes were getting more money than they ever imagined that they could get. So they were selling. Some of the residents, the local residents who have been here forever on the island, are feeling like their neighborhoods are being degraded because there maybe are 50% vacation rentals. So there's been and I'm sure we'll touch on this in detail a little bit later, but there's been some regulations and all that are put in place to stop the expansive growth of vacation rentals, which I am, by the way, not against. An oversaturated market is not anybody's friend. But you should definitely investigate whether there are regulations. So we have to purchase a vacation rental license every year. But now you need to be advised, and this is not happening just here. This is just an example. What happens if you want to sell? What are your requirements when you transfer? Are you able to put it in an LLC or a trust to leave to your children? You really need to investigate all of that. A lot of that is easy to find by just going to the city website and by checking zoning maps and making sure. I had a friend who lived in Florida who just put her house on the market and it was a great price. And I quickly said, hey, do you have any STVR ordinances where you're living? And she said, I don't really know. I just need to sell. So that's what I did. I did the research. Turns out her place wasn't eligible for an STVR. And I'm like, there's why the price is so low, because you can't rent it.
Okay. This is really interesting. The coaching to go to the website and get the current lay of the land is like spot on. And maybe the answer to this next question is no, but is there a way for somebody to do any research to read the tea leaves of where things might go in the market?
Yes. So this is the next thing I would recommend. And it can be a little excruciating from that emotional side. But one of the things we have learned, even in Little Tybee with 3,000 year-round residents, the city council meetings are broadcasts. So you don't have to go, which is good because this face here talks even when these lips don't. So I watch every council meeting and you get to see the public stand up and say what they need to say. And you really get the feel of the town. The other thing was, if you're talking about having like homes in multiple places, once you own a home, you can be on, and this is really the excruciating part, on Nextdoor, which is an app for neighbors to communicate with one another. And so what I did was Steven stayed on the Pittman next door in case we needed to say, hey, we put something really cool on the curb, come pick it up. But I joined Nextdoor for Tybee Island, and there the people really feel free to express
joining
themselves.
Nextdoor is like a ninja trick.
It is
never
hard,
thought of that.
But it is hardcore. Like, you have got to have a stomach of steel. And like literally there are times when I'm like, I need to get off of this thing. Now, I will say, I feel like people are keyboard warriors and are emboldened, because my experience with the actual people of Tybee does not coincide with what these people say on Nextdoor. But you really know where people stand, and it is a good way, like you said, to read the tea leaves. So it doesn't
Mhm.
mean anything's going to happen. You know what your neighbors are thinking. And again, it's still like this echo chamber. So I don't think either of my next door neighbors on either of my properties think about me the way that some of these people on next door
Sure.
collectively think about the STVR renters or
Yeah.
investors. Because and I think some of their frustration comes from bad renters. So one of the things we learned is that maybe the property managers don't really want to enforce the noise regulation because they don't want their people to leave a bad review or what have you.
Mm,
And so there are some things that are really problematic if you're living here all of the time.
yeah.
That they have a point. Is the answer get rid of all the STVRs? I don't think so. But we also did smart things when we first bought. We made friends with our neighbors. We gave our phone number out and said, "Hey, if anything's going on that we should know about, first call." They have like code enforcement. There's a hotline for the vacation rentals. Call them first. If they don't answer, call the police. But also, because at that point we were 700 miles away,
Yeah.
also call us because we want to know.
Yeah. So that really, and I hate to pause the flow here, but that's a key point, which is again, things you can do to maximize your odds of success in this space, whether it's
Yes.
reading the rules, reading the tea leaves, talking to your neighbors. I think another smart thing that you did I mean, it's simple, but installed a Ring doorbell with cameras
Yes.
there to get alerts if things are going wrong.
Yeah. So that's at my permanent residence. Cameras on an SCVR are, you have to disclose them. They can only be outside. There's a lot of rules. So I do not have one
Yeah.
on my rental, but I did have a neighbor that was way better than any Ring camera that I could have. Like she told me who made off with my furniture in the back, and you know,
Oh,
it,
good. Now we're drifting it. So let's switch gears a little bit. Short-term vacation rentals, different animal from a cost structure standpoint.
yes, 100%.
So let's talk about that a little bit again, because we're talking to advisors here and we're going to run numbers. We like numbers as
Yes,
advisors when we're
I run
running
my
numbers.
numbers.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's another valid point, which as advisors, we want to show but not tell. So we want to show clients how to run their numbers, but then they should be able to run them on their own. So I think it's great
Yes.
to do.
And there's plenty of resources out there to learn how to run your numbers.
Well, let's talk
And
about that. So what would you recommend?
yeah. Okay. So first off, I want to go back to something you were saying about it being a different animal. If you ask me the single best piece of advice I got when starting this, the advice I got was if you are an STVR investor, short-term rental investor, you are in the hospitality business, not necessarily just the real estate business. When you're talking about costs and everything, one of the things that we elected to do, mostly because I like to think I'm tough, but I'm really a big baby. And I don't want to deal with people. And I couldn't handle it if somebody called me crying because their vacation was ruined because my air conditioner wasn't working. Like I'd be a mess. So we have elected to go with a property management company down here that does all of the guest facing work, and they also do cleaning and maintenance. So that there are some people, if you choose to self manage an STVR, would have, hopefully it would work out to be the same costs, but it would certainly look completely different. And that's something I can briefly say. They would have things like they would have to take care of replacing consumables. They would have to have cleaning, maintenance. They would need boots on the ground, that kind of thing. It could be their own boots. We're here now. We do our own lawn care to save money and things like that. But being managed means basically in most markets, you could probably count on them taking somewhere around 25% of the
That's what
gross
it is.
bookings on top of any other fees, which they may have, like $60 an hour for the maintenance guy to go out and this much for linen cleaning and whatnot.
So can we pause there just for a moment? And I think in Tybee, the options are limited. It's just a small market, but we're in a larger metro market. What are the questions they should ask a property manager to gauge not only cost structure, but also competence? Do you have?
There are several vacation rental companies on Tybee. Before I chose the rental company that I chose, we stayed in a property from another rental company that is much smaller, who I love because they're small and they give a homey touch. But ultimately, upon asking around to other people in the area who had rental properties, they said that the rental property management company that we ended up going with was the best. So already I had made up my mind. I always want the best of everything, Good thing my husband's not sitting here on this podcast because he would also say the most
I
expensive.
don't know. I'm looking at your background. That looks pretty great to me.
Yes, and this is not a Zoom background. This is off my back porch.
Yeah.
And I also have a couple palm trees that I actually own. That one's not mine, but
Wonderful.
I don't know if you could see my beautiful live oak here, but yeah, and we're not afraid to work hard for our money. So we would definitely go for something that could be the best, that we're willing to make the best. But when it came to property management, I wanted the best. I wanted someone I could have a relationship that would be willing to work with me with my style, which is I am their best friend. I call them all the time. They do assure me that I am one of their best owners, and they do run things by me to get the feel of what I would take for it before they bring it to other owners. So I do think they're telling the truth. Interestingly enough, same thing with our realtor. Like when we picked our realtor, we were doing this, you have to remember, over the phone, 700 miles away. I didn't get to look them in their eye. But when we were starting to look for properties down here, we picked the realtor that we thought was the best for our type of situation based on research that I'd done. If you're in a bigger market, they most often have a magazine, Best of Philadelphia, Savannah Magazine, and people can do advertorials in there and advertise, and they often recognize like they're professionals, like they're always awarding like Savannah's top realtors. There are places where you can narrow your list down if you're in a bigger market. And you could, depending on your goals, go with a Vacasa or something that's a national one. I wanted somebody who I knew and liked as people, who would let me talk and understand me. So the beauty of it was when we decided to look for properties, we had already picked our property manager, and we would have them walk the properties with the realtor, and we would be on FaceTime looking at the properties. But I wanted to make sure that whatever property I bought would fit in their portfolio of homes.
Yeah.
So the owner relations person who is responsible for onboarding new owners grew up and went going to the store in Stone Harbor. So if you know anything about New Jersey,
great.
the Isle, Avalon, Stone Harbor. So he knew my language. And so I'm from the part of New Jersey, which I always tell people down here, outside of Philadelphia. So I'm not a New Yorker, I'm a Philadelphian. And he was living on the other side of Philly. And I could just say to him, hey, David, his name is David. And we still keep in touch, and we're still friendly with him now. I'm like, hey, David, I want Stone Harbor, not Wildwood. Or like,
and he knew exactly what I know exactly what you're talking about. So yeah,
I could refer to things in my language and he could translate. So one of the things that Stephen and I decided when we first started doing this is we were scared to death, and we were just going to keep going till something stops us, was our motto. We're not going to be afraid. We're just like, if the universe or whatever presents an opportunity, we're going to explore it. And if it comes up to be a big no harm, no foul, we're just going to stop. And literally nothing stopped us. And we kept getting these, and this might go a little bit more into Stacy's realm of coaching than yours, your lovely wife. It was literally like things were just happening to us and saying, yeah, you're on the right track. So we get this David, who's wonderful, and he's walking the properties. He would tell us. And so the first property would have been a great rental. And it's a lovely little place that's right around the corner from where I live now, but it didn't fit the herd. I'm still trying to make this house do everything for myself. We did not decide on a permanent residence at that point. So we were like, we really don't know, but we can't move 700 miles away from the herd. Like they have to come with us. Like they have to come. And so we ended up with this property, Nautical Watch. She was owned by someone who had passed away, a local on the island that everybody knew, who actually had an unfortunate accident trimming a palm tree. But so it was an estate. But again, it was one of those generational families that would just come there and party on the weekends. Crazy. They'd have 30 people there. So it wasn't necessarily maintained to the standards that I would want to stay, but it was already in their portfolio. It already had rentals.
So, and you said some things which are really important, because this is a facet I didn't plan to cover today, which is buying as an out-of-state, out-of-market buyer.
Yeah, you got to be able to trust people.
That's it. So you mentioned a couple of things. Is one, feeling good about the relationship. Two is doing the whole FaceTime and the walk around. Three, having a realtor or property manager who's willing to do that with you.
Yes.
And
most of them are down here. They are, because that's a lot of it happens that way down here. Based on the location.
And so I think that's good coaching to clients that we can give as advisors, which is upfront talk to the property manager about how they work with out-of-state buyers and
Yes.
facilitate that process when they can't be there all the time.
And definitely be honest with how you are and what they should expect, because they may be the best property managers on the island, but they may not be the best property manager for your style. I don't care if you have one piece of real estate or you have 1,000. This is your baby. This is your money. And at the end of the day, you're the boss. You have to really recognize that all of these people have a different interest in this property, right? Your realtor is in there to get a commission. Your property manager's in there for you to pay them and for them to rent it. And their interest is keeping it full all of the time.
Yeah.